welcome to another Jew and Gentile podcast. I am your host, Chris Katulka, and with me is none other than the Jewish sage himself, the one, the only Mr. Steve Herzig. How are you, sir?
I am doing great because we have a full room here.
We've got
a schwitz in here.
It's going to get even hotter as we talk, as we blow hot air.
A lot of hot air.
That's exactly right. Well, listen, we got a great show for you. We're going to talk about the big event that happened in Washington, D.C. just yesterday. We had a team of people from the Friends of Israel who went down there. They're going to share all about that experience. We're going to be looking into Daniel chapter 6, and then we've got some great news for you. But before we get there, here we go. Well, welcome in. Steve, first of all, before we get to our guests, I just want to highlight a favorite listener. Because she sent us gifts. You automatically move into the status of favorite when you send us a gift, and this was a special gift.
This was a special gift. I've been on your case for a long time since you don't wear shoes. Socks.
No, I wear shoes.
You wear shoes. You don't wear socks.
I'm not.
And we talked about not wearing socks. And so what does Deb do for us, Debbie? It does say on the, just so you know, Debbie, it does say Deb here. The buyer's name was Deb.
But we know who Debbie is.
We do. And we were kind of surprised.
Here are my, what are yours? Look at yours. I love yours too. You have pink mustache socks.
Pink mustache. Ay, ay, ay.
And I have these, but here's what I'm going to do.
You're going to, we have guests in here. They're going to pass out.
What?
You're taking off your shoes to put on socks?
Well, I just want Deb to see, look.
Oh, no.
Deb.
Forget about it. We're in big trouble.
What are you talking about?
Oh.
I'm fulfilling your wishes. I'm doing my job. I'm putting my socks on.
No, but when did you take a shower? That's what I want to know.
3 days ago.
You're killing us. We're dying
I'm putting
in here.
them on. I'm putting on the socks, Deb. Steve, take over the show. I'm putting my socks on.
I'll do a play-by-play. He is now removing his shoe. He's putting on. He's got bare feet, and we have ladies here who are. Oh, there we go. Look at that,
Deb. Look how great they look.
What do you wear? Size 7?
Oh, very close. 7.5.
There you go. I could tell that foot's a monster.
Oh. A monster wide, not a monster long.
That's the biggest 7 I ever saw.
No, this is a 7. Well, because it's a 7.5.
That baby could kick a 50-yard field goal.
Oh, I wish. I wouldn't be here right now. All right. Well, Steve, as I put on these extra socks from Deb, these nice socks from Deb.
Well, Chris, as you do that, yesterday we tried. We really tried hard.
Did we try?
We wanted to get live on boots on the ground, the support Israel, standing with Israel. We knew that there'd be a lot of people. There were nearly 300,000 people. We had all kinds of people that we knew who were there. So we tried to call them. Nothing. Butt kiss. Dead. He's putting up his feet again.
Thank you, Deb. We love you, Deb.
And we got nothing. We tried to get a hold of people. They couldn't even. Best we could get were a couple texts saying, "I got no service here," etc. So we went to. We did get Bruce Scott. I don't know. Did you do anything?
I haven't done anything with it yet. But here's what we got from Bruce. I'll tell you what we got from him.
Okay, I'm
having a great time. Lots of great people here. Important things to be said.
Fight antisemitism. We did get fight.
That was it. I just summed up the whole meeting we had with Bruce.
That's true.
No, there were so many people down there. It was cutting the lines out. You couldn't get any access to data or any access calling people would drop the lines. There were just so many people crammed in one spot. It wasn't working out well for us to communicate. But we tried hard.
We tried very hard.
We tried hard.
We have 3 guests here today who were there yesterday. And we asked them if they would take the time of their busy day. All 3 of them are with Friends of Israel. They're in 3 different departments. And why don't you introduce them? We'll start off. We have 2 of them. Chris, because of the budget that we have with our 7 listeners, we only have 2 extra headphones and microphones.
Hey, please go.
We're thankful for those.
Go get a mug on a mug. Donation of $10.
Mug on a mug.
That's right, a minimum donation, and maybe we can get another microphone and a pair of headphones.
That's right, but we only have 2, so we're going to kind of rotate them. And so we're going to start off with Roxanne. Roxanne, we're going to start off with the Big Macher department.
Oh, big time.
The Big Macher department. It goes first. Jim Showers is the president. Roxanne is his administrative assistant. And she was the one that put together a van with Friends of Israel people in the van to go down to Washington. So, Roxanne, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome
it's good
back.
To be back.
And what's in your hand? Let's show everybody what's in your hand.
Look what I have.
That's right. If you are watching online, then you see it's an Israeli flag. But if you're listening and you're going, what does she have? She's flying an Israeli flag
she's
right
even
now.
doing waves.
I know.
Waving in
You
the
got
wind.
it down.
It's like a schwitz in here. There's no air circulation. She's faking it.
I might go open a window pretty soon.
So Roxanne, tell us, you helped organize it. We're so glad you did. You gave opportunity for people to go down there from our organization, the Friends of Israel Gospel Ministry. Tell us just a little bit about what you experienced and saw while you were there.
Yeah, it was really a last minute. This whole event was a last minute decision, and there were a couple of larger organizations that worked together to get it all set up. And we happened to have contacts with those organizations. And so they reached out to us and asked if we would be interested in going and sent out invitations. So from the FIDF to ACLI to ICEJ.
Wait,
you gotta rewind.
The letters are flying out of your mouth here.
You know, there is a radio rule that you cannot just give an acronym out. You have to say what they are.
Now we don't even know what they are.
Well, we know it's the American Christian Leaders for Israel, ACLI.
And they were the main ones that I was in touch with.
Yep,
And
that was Susan Michaels.
Susan
So say it
Michaels.
again slowly to give them credit.
It is the American Christian Leaders of Israel, for Israel.
That's right.
And Susan
Jim
Michaels.
Showers is on the ACLI as well. He's a part of the Christian Leaders for Israel with Susan Michaels and many other Christian leaders as well. What was another organization?
FIDF.
The Friends of IDF, and they help lone soldiers in Israel. They have an amazing nonprofit here in the United States that helps out the Israeli Defense Forces and things of that nature. Was there another one?
There was ICEJ.
Yep, and that's Susan Michaels as well. Susan Michaels is just what you would call a rock star when it comes to Christian Zionism, Christians who love and support Israel and the Jewish people.
She put the M in Macher.
She really does. We need to have her on the program
We
one day.
need to have her on.
We got a photo op with her, so it was nice.
But Susan, ICEJ is the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem, which is just another fantastic organization as well. So that's great. So you had a chance to partner with all them in getting down there and bringing Friends of Israel staff and friends down into Washington.
Okay, so now we got the letters out of the way. So now go back and tell us what it is you experienced, how you felt when you were there. How long were you there?
We were there almost all day. And so we left here about 8:30 in the morning, expecting to be hit with horrible traffic, and it was a smooth ride. From 8:30, we got there at 10:30, and he jumped on the metro, and fortunately,
I would like to have seen the three of you ladies jump on the metro.
We did.
That would be hilarious. Let's jump. Chris, you and I were, over the weekend, we had a couple guys tell us, hey, let's throw a couple chairs onto the stage.
Yeah, that's right.
For our meeting. And now we have three we just jumped on the metro.
Jumped right on the metro. Like it's no big deal.
We're young. We got it. No, so Tim Harrison and David were there with us. And David is, he's great with maps. So
Tell us
he
who
led us.
David is.
David is my husband, David Lightfoot. And so
Lightfoot jumping on the metro.
I'm telling you, there's a lot of symbolism here.
So he got us there safely, and unfortunately, we entered on the west side of the mall, and we needed to get around to the east side of the mall.
You're joking. Was there an easy pass through?
No,
You had to go all the way around.
We had to go all the way down to 10th Street to come back up to get to 7th Street.
You must
12th
have gotten a
Street
lot
to
of steps.
Oh, my Fitbit was going off. So good job, Roxanne.
That's right. No, I'll tell you, if there's one thing I always remember about going to Washington, D.C., it's that I feel winded by the time I get home. That's just the truth.
The last time I was there was with Chris's class, and we used to take the IJS students down to D.C. to the Holocaust Museum, and then we'd go around and visit the monuments and stuff. And one time we lost a student, so Mitch Treisman had to go find the student, and the rest of the students were in the van. So Chris jumped out and said, "Hey, let's play freeze tag."
That's right. That's 20 years ago.
I'm like, we can't play freeze tag anymore.
Insights into FOI staff.
Oh, that's right. People are constantly losing respect for Chris Katulka. He's putting his feet in the camera, he's playing freeze tag.
Those were the good old days. So going to DC wasn't a scary experience for me because I took the IGS students there so many times, but seeing 300,000 people there was quite the experience.
And they were only expecting 100,000. I said, when I heard 100,000, I thought there's going to be more than 100,000. I'm so glad there were three. I'm sorry that you had to walk all the way around the mall, but I'm glad that there were 300,000 people there. Steve, you had them all come up with a word to describe the event. I thought maybe because Roxy's only got a few moments with us.
Give us your word, Roxanne.
It was hopeful.
It was hopeful.
Why is that?
Well, Hatikva
Yes.
is one reason, but hopeful because I saw so many people coming together, unifying under one flag, one country, one nation, that really just want to fight to survive. And it's a people, it's a nation that love life more than death. And so they celebrate it. And it's so important for us as evangelicals to support Israel. And so it was just hopeful to see other Christians come together and support Israel. And not only that, we were holding up these signs, Christians stand with Israel. And we had so many people come up to us and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. And one thing that we've heard over and over is we kept telling them, you're not alone. You're not alone. Even though they see my friends in Israel are saying, why does America hate us so much? Why does the U.S. hate us so much? And we're like, well, it's coming from the universities in different areas, but the evangelical community is there. We're here to support you, and we love you. And
that's amazing.
Well, Roxanne,
So
we know
hopeful.
you have to go, and so
Hopeful.
we're thankful. Let's give us a wave.
Yay, there you go.
There you go. We're really glad
Thank
that
you,
you
Roxy.
organized doing it, and you're going to switch places with Laura.
and I just have one more thing to say.
Of course. She's telling us she had to go,
I
Chris.
do.
She's saying, "Wait, put me
Yalla,
first."
yalla.
And now, what does she say? Wait a minute. I
just
got one more thing
one
to
more
say.
thing to say.
Sei gesund. Live and be well.
So one more thing to wrap up what I want to say. What's most on my heart is a quote that I heard years and years ago that just kind of rang true for me personally. On October 7th was a quote that said, to sum up this whole issue, the war and the fighting that's going on, is that until we accept the sacrifice of God's own son, we will continue to sacrifice our sons and daughters on the front lines. And that is why the gospel is so important. Because if we want true peace, if we want true shalom, it can only be found in Jesus Christ. And that's what I want to say.
Roxanne, fitting way to close it out.
100%.
We're thankful. And don't forget to, that's it. You don't want to, otherwise you're going to fall to the ground. We don't
Don't
want
fall
that.
to the ground. We love you, Roxy. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Roxanne.
Bye.
All right. And now, and Roxy, take your drink with you. Okay. And now as Roxy's heading out, we're gonna talk
Segue here
we're
to Kathy.
Yeah, that's right. Kathy, I see you got your sign there. How was it, Kathy, heading down there? Tell us your feelings. Tell us what you were feeling when you were going down. What was kind of like in your heart as you were traveling from New Jersey to Washington, D.C.?
Well, when it was first announced in our chapel at Friends of Israel, I got immediately excited about it. Like, I'm going. I'm just going. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'm going. I've never been to the National Mall like that to just rally a cause that big. Never, ever in my life been with that many people all together saying the same thing and just being together and supporting each other. I just saw a lot of Jewish leaders there, rabbis and young children. There was buses, about 20 buses of high school children, middle school children that came down to support Israel, and it was impressive.
That was your word,
That's
right?
my word.
That's
Yeah,
her word to
it
sum
was-
it up.
Yeah, your
Impressive.
one word is impressive. Did you hear anything from any of the speakers that stood out to you? I know that you weren't there to be able to hear everything, but was there something that you heard a speaker say that stuck in your mind as speakers were speaking to 300,000 people? And I'll say it's 300,000 plus because I was watching on the news
Yep.
The news was carrying
Live.
live.
Every speech.
Yeah.
I watched it. Yeah.
And they don't do that for pro-Palestinian rallies, but they did it for the pro-Israel rallies, which I am thankful for, because yes, there were 300,000 people in attendance, but I know Steve and I were watching it right here on the TV from the headquarters, and I know people from all around the country, maybe even around the world, that were watching it. So while 300,000 might have been present, millions could have been tuning in to hear what these speeches were. Was there anything that stood out to you?
Well, they did sing Hatikva at and everyone joined in. It was a predominantly Jewish crowd. I mean, if you're a born again believer, we're just used to our church type of congregation. That's who we're with most of the time. But there was just so many more Jewish representation at that. So everyone was singing Hatikva, and it just went through the crowd. If you've ever heard music through a crowd, it kind of wafts towards the back, and it was beautiful.
And you said now you are kind of on a mission to learn Hatikva.
Yes, I am.
Which, if for those who are listening, maybe they don't know what Hatikva is. That's Israel's national anthem, and it means the hope. So that's something you're a professional you're a pianist.
Yes.
So you've already played Hatikva, I feel like. Many times.
Yeah, a lot of times.
Yeah, you know it on the piano, but you want to learn the lyrics to it.
Yeah, it would have been great to. I knew some lines, but certainly not all. But who else spoke? Mike Johnson spoke, our news speaker.
I saw him. I heard it and saw him speaking. That was a great. And so was the minority in the Democratic side. I forgot his name.
Jeffries.
Yeah, Jeffries. He did a magnificent job. A magnificent. It was a great
Hakeem
speech.
Jeffries.
Yep. It was a great job.
Yes.
Great job.
Oh, it was unbelievable. And you could hear everything. I mean, 300,000 people, we still could hear everything. We could see a jumbo screen. So
Did you see anybody you knew?
Did you run into anybody?
Did you run into
Did you run into
anybody?
any old friends?
We did. Yeah, we ran into. Well, I didn't expect to see Susan Michaels. For some reason, I thought that maybe she was like part of the speaking. I think I thought that the speakers were like a combination of Christians and Jews, and it was predominantly Jewish.
But
we ran into her in the crowd.
Laura Coleman is on. Introduce yourself.
Hi,
and make sure you speak into the
Get
mic.
your mic closer.
You're
There
flying
you
away
go.
there.
Yeah.
Kiss the mic.
All right.
There you go.
So I'm. You probably, if you've been a long time listener, you've met me before. But I work for Steve and Chris. And then if you sign up
we
for
drive her
Equip
crazy.
Classes, you get lots of emails from me. So
This is what
by
Laura says all the time.
Is anything okay?
No, Laura is the bedrock of what Steve and I try to do here in North American Ministries. Laura, we want to hear more from you in a moment, but Kathy, I want to wrap up with what you were saying with the word impressive. I want to know why it was impressive to you. Was it just the amount of people? Was it the moment? What was it that stood out to you that made it impressive?
I think too, I don't know if this is weird or not, but there's a body language with people when they're on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And we were standing in the midst of that. So sorry. It was impressive.
It was impressive. It sounds like it was emotional too.
Emotional. So look, I'm impressed with Kathy. She's impressed with the people. We're impressed with your passion. That's great. Don't hold back.
There was a lot of differing things within our unity, but for that moment in that crowd, it was just very moving. Yeah.
Kathy, when I was growing up, I was saved in Calvary Chapel, and there was a room in Calvary Chapel called the Cry Room.
Oh.
And I used to think that's where people went who were emotional from the message. And I think there are so many people going into the Cry Room. They must be so emotional from the message. And here, it was years later when I realized, that's where people with babies go.
Oh my!
But I appreciate the emotional.
Yeah.
If we had a Cry Room, I would invite you to go to it. But I definitely, I know that feeling of emotion when it comes to when there's a rally of people together and you're united on something that means something to you. So, thank you for going.
Yes, it was.
And thanks for holding up that. Was that your job at the place too?
Oh yeah, we had to hang it over our heads. Everybody had different signs, different organizations.
Did you get a chance to? Were you so bold as to talk to somebody from other people along the way besides just the little FOI group that was there?
Just mainly, there were rabbis, or I know they were a level of Jewish leadership because they had the hats and the
Did you
different.
say, "Hey, how you doing?" Or did you go, "Hey, we're Christians"?
You know, they actually approached us and saw these signs, and they said, this is great. You came down to support us. We got a lot of that from
we stuck
people.
out. I think we
Yeah.
stuck out.
We did.
Yeah, because most of the groups that we saw were either from schools, Jewish schools, or Jewish federations, and a lot of them had the cities that they were from. They were from all over the country.
All over the country. Yeah.
And big groups. So we were kind of a little hub. I mean, we had a few people from our field, Bruce Scott, and then Becky Meisner, and some people who've done
But you
bridges.
didn't see them there.
No, we saw them.
Oh,
we
you did?
actually
We
did meet up
finally
with them.
met
Yeah,
them.
we actually were able to
Took a
connect
while.
with them. It took a while before it started, but yeah, by the time it started at 1, we were with them, and but we definitely stuck out in the hub that we were in.
Yes.
It was very obvious that we were different.
What was the
Yeah.
practical side? Did you have water? Did you bring water with you? Did you have to use the bathroom? What?
Did you wear your high heels?
No, I mean, there's some 300,000 people. You're there from 10:30 in the morning till when did you start coming back home?
We left around 2:30.
Yeah.
Yeah, that actually, Kathy was ready to go as soon as the email came out.
Yeah,
I was apprehensive.
ready.
I'm not going to lie. I was
I was
because
going to
at
ask you
that
about that, Laura.
There was not
What did you feel?
We didn't have a group van or a bus or anything going, and I think Kathy was ready to just get on. And
That's awesome.
I've done some crazy things with Kathy. Like we went up one time to see somebody. We went up to see Michael Brown, and he was debating a rabbi up in New York, and the two of us went. And I thought, I don't know if I want to go to DC with just Kathy. No offense.
She's going to cry any minute.
We would have figured it out. But I was I lived through, I worked in a church in Cherry Hill during 9/11. And I the last month or so, I'm sort of reliving the way I felt, this like apprehension about what was going to happen. I didn't want to be in a crowd. I didn't want to be in a city.
Cherry Hill, New Jersey there's a lot of Jewish people.
It impacted that community. It was a radical change, and everybody was different after that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been watching the news, and I'm seeing the antisemitism on college campuses, and the people ripping down
The
posters
pictures, yep.
and I was expecting pushback. I was
none.
actually kind of nervous about
No pushback.
there, of everybody, all these high level Jewish groups were all going to be in the same place at once. I was nervous. I mean, I know Biden's, from the front, he's saying pro Israel, but I'm just not sure. And so I was apprehensive. I had called my sister the day before and said, I just want to make sure you know where I am. This is the plan. And, but I have to say, the city did a great job.
Yeah.
I didn't feel unsafe at all.
That's
It was
great
very
news.
well organized. And like Kathy said, it was very positive. The vibe was very energetic, a lot of youth.
And that's your word, right?
Yeah.
Energetic is your word.
So, it felt like even though there was a focus on the hostages, it was very positive. There was really no negative chants or things like that. It was, bring them home now. And actually the thing that struck me the most is that several of us had the opportunity to assist an artist who had done a very large banner that you can probably see in aerial shots. And so I was holding the sign up. I was doing like the Moses thing where I was holding up the sign the whole time. And it was an honor to do that.
Oh, that's
What did the
great.
banner say again?
It said, "Bring them home now."
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah, there
So-
were certain. This wasn't just a rally to get together. There were resolutions that were put forth from this, which was to release the hostages. There were a few other ones as well. It wasn't just a gathering of people. It was that to show support, to show solidarity,
Yeah.
but it was also an opportunity to put forth resolutions demanding Hamas release hostages and things of
Right.
that nature.
Right.
So-
that was the main chant was "Bring them home now," and so I felt very honored to assist her. She had her. I don't know that she was with a group. She was Jewish. I don't know who she was with, but she made it herself. It was like a sewn banner that she had hand painted. And then she was just pulling people from the crowd. And actually, Becky Meisner and I, pretty much the whole time, were holding that up.
Kept the
Right.
sun
Isn't that
off
great?
for
Isn't
people
that great?
too.
Yeah.
So you really,
Yeah.
both of you felt part of something bigger than yourselves.
Yes.
Wouldn't you say
Yes.
that's true?
Much so.
Yeah.
And not only did we have volunteers go down, but did we have Friends of Israel staff go down, but we had Tikva team volunteers. Those are our
What's
FOI.
tikva? Yeah, tell us. What's
Tikva,
tikva?
it means hope. That's where we get the word for hot tikva from. Tikva is our volunteer team at Friends of Israel, and we had some great volunteers on our Tikva team with Friends of Israel down at the event. We had a Bridges graduate down at the event showing solidarity with Israel and the Jewish people. So this was really, we had staff, volunteers, Bridges graduates. So again, that's why when you get your mug on a mug and you go to gofoi.org/mug and you give $10 as a minimum donation, we hope that you give more. You'll get a mug, but you're also supporting our volunteer network. As you could see, that was down there showing support to Israel and the Jewish people. Bridges program, which is training people to love and support Israel and the Jewish people. We have Bridges graduates there. So what a great way to support Israel and the Jewish people during this very, very dark time in Israel.
Well, Chris, I'm really glad that we had 3 of our staff able to come to our podcast for our 7 listeners,
100%.
maybe an 8th out there. And ladies, you're more than you can hang out here as long as you want, or if we're getting to you, you could leave whenever you want.
Make yourself at home or
Yeah.
make yourself at home and leave. Whatever you want to do.
Whatever you want to do. It's
Not gonna
fun.
lie, it's quite warm in here.
No kidding.
It's a schwitz.
I'm telling you, there's a lot of hot air being thrown out there.
Well, Steve, you were flipping through a book and I almost think in these moments you're praying, Lord, what do you want me to say? And boom, God gives you the answer.
It's true. Here's a book. It's an older book. We've quoted from it before. It's called "I Am Jewish: The Personal Reflections Inspired by the Last Words of Daniel Pearl." And of course, he was a journalist who was murdered, beheaded, just a horrible death. And his family had Jewish people write what that means to them. I am Jewish. And so, Chris, as you said, I just opened it up. What book are we studying in the Bible during this podcast?
We're going through Daniel right now.
And I open it up. I kid you not. It goes to a man named Ephraim Kishon, Kishon, who was nominated for a Nobel Prize in Literature in 2001. So this is 22 years ago. And at the top of the page concerning what is he going to write about, as a Jew, Ephraim says, the message of Daniel is very clear to me. Our only safe shelter is Israel. Our only safe shelter is Israel. And
Do you believe that?
I believe Israel was formed by your beard mate,
My spirit animal.
Theodore Herzl. He wanted a homeland for the Jewish people. Benjamin Netanyahu said, the safest place while the war is going on. He specifically said, while the war is going on, the safest place for Jewish people is Israel. And I believe that that's true.
They've even seen a surge of people making aliyah during the war. Aliyah means to immigrate, to Jewish people immigrating to Israel. And you'd think during the war there'd be a decline, but there have been people that have been immigrating back even during the war because of their identity that's connected as a Jewish person to the land. And so that's really, really important too. But it's interesting that he's saying Daniel had a vision that the best place for a Jewish person is in Israel.
Israel's the safe place. It's interesting because every news thing that I'm hearing about, and you heard it from our 3 Gentile FOI employees, they love Israel. They're Christians who love Israel. I'm a Jewish Christian that loves Israel. You're a Gentile Christian that loves Israel. But what do we hear? We heard it from our executive director this morning at our chapel service, where he says Jewish people feel alone, and they feel isolated, and they feel scared. We heard it from our representatives in France, in Paris. There were some real strong indications of incidents of anti-Semitism, up over 1,000%. Last week, when we did our podcast, one of the news items was that the anti-Semitism in America is up over 1,000%. And you and I said, I can't even 1,000%. How can anything be above 100%?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's 1,000%. And so, yes, I believe Israel is the place that God ordained for the Jewish people. And right now, it's a place where Jewish people feel the most safe.
100%. And so I'm glad that you came, especially in the times that we're living in. That book is very important that Daniel Pearl wrote. I am Jewish.
And that was right before he, it's encouragement to us. What did he say right before he died? He didn't deny his identity. He stood fast. And that's important for us as we look at an event that took place 22 years ago and see we haven't advanced much, have we? The same dangers, the same anti-Semitism, and the same butchery that was perpetrated on him was duplicated dozens and dozens and dozens of times in those kibbutzim.
Steve, I was watching the news a couple days ago, and I think it was definitely, on a weekend, and it was like a weekend special show or something like that, and it talked about all those posters that people are ripping down of the Israelis who are abducted. And so somebody did a little journalistic research and started asking a question, which I wish I would have asked: where did those come from? Who's printing those things? And so they found 2 Israeli artists that just started. They're artists, but they're the ones who created put the pictures on there, the information about who they were, and developed them. And then they made them available on Instagram for people to download and print out. And they said they went to bed one night and they woke up and it was viral. And now you can go to a certain website, and I'll have to try to find it, where you can actually download all of those
240 or whatever it is,
however many they made, and you can print them out and you can post them. And those are the ones that the people who hate Israel, probably support the Hamas, are ripping down those posters. And it's just interesting because it was 2 Israelis. They didn't expect it to become this. They didn't expect it to become identified with hate, where, they just thought, oh, we'll post pictures of the people who are abducted. They're not trying to be
they want to remember
sensitive
them.
Or anything like that, or to be politically anything. And all of a sudden people are videos of them ripping them down and just as they walk by. And it happens in suburbs. It happened here in Cherry Hill. There is South Jersey. It happens in New York City. It happens in L.A. It happens all around the world. They've been printing these off, and it's these Israeli artists that made it. So I'll have to try to find the news feed. The woman, the Israeli artist who did it, there's a man and a woman. The woman showed her face, unashamed. The man didn't want to give his name fully. I mean, I think it was, he gave like a weird last name, but he covered his face up to here. He didn't want his face to be seen. So, but the woman said, see my face. I don't care. She was proud about what she did. And I'm not saying he's not, but he was covering up. I guess he didn't want any tsuris in his life. But it was very interesting because you see them ripping down these things, these signs, these posters, and you don't realize where they came from. They came from 2 people who wanted to make a difference.
Chris, let me ask you a very easy question. Why would what's the motivation to tear down posters of people who were kidnapped and who are held hostage? Why do you think they want to take those pictures down?
I thought about that, and I think a lot of it has to do with they're trying to communicate that what the Israelis are going through doesn't compare to what the Palestinians are going through, and it's all a lie. They think that many of these people actually believe that the Israelis are making up these stories. They didn't actually butcher Israelis like this. They didn't do this. They didn't take kids. They didn't do. It's all a lie. They're trying to whitewash the situation. I think there are some people that believe it did happen and they're okay with it and they still want to rip it down. I do think there's a spectrum of people. I really do think that there are people who believe, and I mean this, they believe it. They believe that it actually didn't happen, that Israel made it. It's all propaganda. And then on the other end, I think there are people that go, no, it happened and Israel's an enemy and I don't like this, and they rip it down. I don't know.
There's some of them. Well, I heard one of the leaders of Hamas just say, these aren't hostages, these are prisoners.
Yeah.
They're prisoners. So the 3-month-old that they have is a prisoner of war. The 3-year-old girl who watched her parents be killed was taken hostage. She's a criminal. She's a military criminal who is a prisoner of war. And they want to negotiate getting their criminals, their prisoners of war, for thousands of Hamas prisoners.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they're going to do. And it's interesting. They already know that Israel will take, for one of theirs, they'll give 1,000 back. That's already happened. And it's just interesting how the two sides regard life, individual liberty and individual life.
Yeah. 57 Arab countries, mostly Muslim countries, got together in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia recently. And it included Saudi Arabia. It included Iran. It included Turkey. It included the Palestinian president. It included all these leaders, but there were 57 of them to talk about the war between Israel and Hamas. And it's fascinating what some of these countries wanted. They all agreed that Israel is not acting in self-defense, that it should stop its war. They all agreed on that. But Iran wanted to label the Israel Defense Forces a terrorist organization. And you know who said, no, we're not going to do that? Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, Djibouti. My kids laughed at me when I said that. Djibouti, and then another, I forget what the other, Moratoria or something like that. There were a lot of those countries that were connected to the Abraham Accords that were saying, no, we don't like the war that's going on, but we're going to leave it in the hands of the UN to manage this, where the Iran and several other countries wanted a full action that the Arab states are going to take against Israel, but they wanted to label the IDF a terrorist organization, which to me, it just goes to show what they think, how they think. They think the IDF is a terrorist organization. The IDF isn't launching rockets into on a daily basis into Gaza or into the West Bank. It's the terrorists that are doing that. So
well, I will tell you, Chris, that right now, as we're speaking, the IDF, parts of the IDF are actually underground, and there are Hamas people who are terrified.
Yeah.
They are
That's good.
terrified, and rightfully so. They can hear the tanks above ground. Many of our listeners, I'm sure, have already seen videos. Israel has sponge bombs. I love that. Sponge bombs,
Yeah,
where they
SpongeBob.
explode and they expand and they cut off entry or exit from a given tunnel. And they are going methodically, very slowly. They're trying to make sure that there are no civilians hurt because they're right under a hospital. But they still want to conduct military activities because that's what Hamas wants them to do. So they're underground, and they know it. Hamas knows it, and I believe they are terrified, and they should be, because Israel's coming.
They are coming, and I actually, of course we want all the hostages to be released, but I don't think that that's going to prevent Netanyahu and the Israeli military from going in and executing Hamas once and for all. I actually, for Israel My Glory, Steve, I have an article that I have to do on Hamas and Hezbollah, and it's a little overdue because it won't come out until, I think, March, April or something like that.
So you're holding off as long as you can to get as much info as you can.
Well, it's not even, will there be a Hamas?
Yeah, that's a
In
fair
March,
question.
am I writing an article that's going to be already outdated by the time it comes out? Because will there be a Hamas? I think there'll be the spirit of Hamas, but I think that the infrastructure of Hamas will be demolished so much that it won't be able to function like it is.
ISIS, which was mostly eliminated, is changed to Hamas. If they execute most of the Hamas people and the leadership, it's going to morph into something else because anti-Semitism isn't dead. It's been around. You and I have talked about it. Friends of Israel's talked about it for 85 years. It's going to continue until the Messiah comes. And so but nonetheless, they have to remove the threat that they've lived by since Ariel Sharon turned that place over to the PLO, and then the year later when they elected Hamas.
Hey, no one talks about that.
They elected
No one talks
Hamas.
about that. Exactly. You know who else was terrified is Darius, because Darius had a good buddy, and his buddy was named Daniel. And
The two D brothers.
That's right. They were
Darius and Daniel.
Darius and Daniel, and the leaders in Daniel chapter 6 were terrified. They actually, I shouldn't say terrified. They were they were angry, frustrated. They actually, if you want to see the spirit of anti-Semitism, it's bound up right here in the story in Daniel chapter 6, where these governors, magistrates, that they're called satraps, that they were leaders over. They're almost like provinces or states of the empire. And they were so frustrated with Daniel for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe they were jealous. Yeah, jealous.
There's not a doubt in my mind that part of anti-Semitism is, in general, is because when a group comes into a place and they're newcomers, and they end up being more successful than the people who've been around a long time. This happens in business, Chris. Somebody's hired real quick. Somebody's been around. Longevity is certainly part of business and should be rewarded. In certain professions, you're rewarded simply because you last a long time. The longer you last, doesn't matter whether you're good or bad. If you last, you're going to go up the chain. You're going to get more money, etc. But what if you're the new kid on the block and you outproduce all the people behind? I could tell you when it comes to unions, I was a Teamster for a short time.
You were?
I was a Teamster, yeah. While I was in college. And
what did you do? What were you a Teamster of?
It was in a warehouse that supplied, it was for a drugstore. All the stuff the drugstore need. There were multiple drugstores all around Pittsburgh and Cleveland and Toledo. I was in Northeast, living in Cleveland, and so as a Teamster, you get paid a certain amount per hour. It's all run by higher ups, and they put you in a place. You don't negotiate. It doesn't matter once you're hired. It doesn't matter what your abilities are. You have to conform to what they tell you to do. So some young whippersnapper comes in and he outproduces all the other people. You know what they tell him? This happens in the UAW, saying, "Hey, you're going too fast.
Mm-hmm.
Slow down.
Mm-hmm.
What are you trying to show us up?" That's the kind of mentality. So anti-Semitism has come. Now, it's not 100% the reason, but it's certainly part of the reason. Wherever Jewish people have gone and they've been allowed to be themselves and use their creative thinking and their minds and their desires and work ethic, they excel.
Yep.
That's documented. Daniel, wasn't he a minority?
He was a minority. He was old too.
He excelled.
He excelled, and it even says that they couldn't find. They wanted to bring some accusation against him, and they couldn't find a single thing. He is a man of integrity. And then it says, we're not going to find anything on this guy, Daniel, unless it has something to do with the law of his God. So we're going to get him anti-Semitism from a religious angle. You know, there is two forms of anti-Semitism. There's religious anti-Semitism, and then there is genetic, which is the angle that the Nazis went. They went that more genetic route. Oh, you're a Jew. This is who you are. Then they even would start to make the noses look bigger. Look at the Jews have bigger noses. It's a genetic form. genetically they're Jews are predisposed to act and think like this. It's not even has anything to do with their religion. If you read things coming out of the propaganda coming out of Nazi Germany, it was that all Jews are like this. There isn't a good Jew because they're all like this. It's baked into their DNA. And so it wasn't even religious at this point. It was genetic at the DNA of who a Jewish person is.
Their blood.
Exactly.
It's their blood.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so here they went for the religious side. Oh, we can't get him here on integrity, but you know what? We'll get him on this. And what they did is they set up Daniel. And they set
and
him
he
up.
knew he was being set up.
That's right. It was a perfect setup, and the setup was, hey, you got to bow down to King Darius. You can't bow down to any other god but King Darius for a month. And King Darius, I'm sure he's like, whatever. Yes, go ahead and do that. He signs it into law. He can't take it back. And Daniel refuses to do it. And so he gets thrown in the lion's den. And here's where...
tell us about the law of the Medes and the Persians. You kind of glossed over it, but it really plays a role in a lot of biblical things. What does that mean? Once he signed it, what does that mean?
Well, once it's signed, it can't be he can't go and redact it or change. Well, he can redact it, but he can't undo it. He can't undo the law.
Even the king can't undo what the king signed. So he doesn't get a second chance. If he seals it, it's done.
It's done. Now he can add, like in the case of Esther,
he can add to it,
which is Jews have the right. He was saying you can defend yourselves.
That's right. But he couldn't change. And Chris, just as a sidelight, God is that way.
Yes.
Do you know God is that way? That when God said, in the day you eat thereof, you will surely die. That's in Genesis. And do you know God could not, because of his integrity and because of his person, his character, his makeup, it's who he is. He can't violate himself. And so when he said, in the day you eat, you're dead. Mankind is going to be in trouble if, Adam, you do this. Mm-hmm. And so Darius had to find another way. And God had to find another way.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, is that it's not even... A lot of times I think people read the Old Testament and the New Testament and they think that, oh, God, he found a loophole.
Nope.
God didn't find a loophole. He sent his only son. That's not a loophole.
Paid in full. Somebody's got to pay here.
Yep.
So, hey, we have a mug. We had to buy the mugs. We're happy to get people a deal. You give us $10, and we'll send it to you. Nothing is free in life. Nothing. Somebody's paying. Kids think that. Oh, look, I got this or I got that. Chris,
you know what this is like too, is that, we live outside of Philadelphia and crime is rampant. And that's because there were laws. And the laws said if you commit certain crimes, you'll land in jail. And what happened was these liberal district attorneys come in and they go, let's flex the law a little bit. Let's flex it so that, now if you steal up to $1,000, nothing happens to you. So basically you're telling a kid, I can walk into a store and steal a TV and bupkis happens.
It's true. Do you know what some companies are doing now? They're putting photographs of products.
I don't blame
I'm not kidding.
They'll probably get stolen too.
You have to ring a bell and say, you see that picture of those diapers? I want those. And so they have to go in the back and get it for you, because that's right. They're just saying, no cost to crime.
And that's why I think a lot of people think God did. That he went and he goes, we'll just manipulate the law a little bit to allow people to have a relationship with me. No, he is both the just and the justifier.
Boy, that's so critical to understanding, isn't it, Chris? And so Daniel is doing what he normally does, and I can't say he doesn't care. He knows what's happening. He's been around a long time. He's willing to pay the cost. That's the key. Okay, this is the law. I understand. I'm not going to bow down, and I'll open the window just to make sure if anybody's looking. I'm praying my 3 times, and I'm bowing down to my God, not to those gods. And so he was willing to pay the price. Mm-hmm. And the king was not too happy with himself.
No, he realized he's been bamboozled, probably. And that's the same thing that happened to Xerxes in in Esther is he realized he's been bamboozled as well. It's almost the exact same theme in the from Daniel 6 to Esther. But the point though is that Darius goes in the morning to find out, I'm sure he's going, oh, Lord,
He
please.
didn't even sleep.
No, he was terrified.
He liked Daniel. Daniel was an important person in his life. He was doing a great job. We talked about it last week, but don't you marvel that Daniel was able to get along with the Babylonian Nebuchadnezzar? And now they transition. We read about that. The meanie type tickle.
Forsen.
And, the handwriting's on the wall. And by the way, keep your goods, no problem. And he just segues to the next leader. Here I am. And they say, you're great. And so now he's the third and he's a top dog. He's really
a consultant.
number 2.
He's like a consultant. They just go, oh, this business, we'll move it over here. You come with us and help us
So
out.
he had all the tsuris with Nebuchadnezzar. Now he's got Darius. He said, King, I'll see you later.
Do you think at this point Daniel's going, whatever happens? I mean,
I do.
Yeah, at this point, God has done so much for him and for his colleagues.
I think he felt sorry for Darius. Okay, put me in. But I'm telling you, you're the one that might be in more trouble than me. Why don't you read the text? We're going on and on here.
Yeah, well, it says, I'll start in verse 19 because that's when Darius shows up at the first light of dawn, verse 19.
Go one verse behind.
Okay.
Do the verse before.
Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night without eating and without any entertainment being brought to him, and he could not sleep. At the first light of dawn, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. And when he came near to the den, he called to Daniel in an anguished voice, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lion's den? You know what I love about that is that he's saying, Daniel, the God that you serve all the time, so much so that you wouldn't even bow down to me, that you bupkis to me, everything to God, you submitted completely to God and his law.
And the schmoozer Daniel answers? How does he answer? How does that schmoozer answer?
Daniel answered, may the king live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight, nor have I ever done any wrong before you, your majesty. What a great testimony, Steve, that you might disagree with the politics that are coming out and policies that are coming from certain administrations from Washington, D.C. But it's just a sign from Daniel here that you should still pay them respect.
100%.
Here he is, and here is a pagan king who, of course, was sad to see his friend get thrown into the lion's den, but he put him in there. And then Daniel comes and says, may the king live forever. Like you said, schmoozing 101.
He's schmoozing 101. You know what he's saying? I got this. I got this.
But isn't that
But it's not, I'm not saying he was arrogant. He was putting himself in the hands of the living God. And so he had this because he was confident that God had him.
Exactly. And that's where I think we need to be as Christians, because I think the story is the same for Christians. We are living in the world. It's not the world. It's not the home that God promised, or that this isn't heaven. This is still controlled by Satan. We're
just passing through here.
We're ambassadors for Christ, which means we're not actually home. We're ambassadors. We represent Christ here on earth, which means that we're in diaspora. We're not surrounded by the world we want to be surrounded by. And so here is a testimony of Daniel, who's able to look up to that ruler and say, may the king live forever, but I really know who's in charge here. And it's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
And you know what it says at the end of verse 23? I have the New King James, and it reads this way: because he believed in his God. That's why. Because he believed. Now, does that mean that in everything in life, because we believe that Jesus rose from the grave after he conquered sin and death for us, that everything's okay for us? No, it doesn't. I told you, my line is anything okay?
Mm-hmm.
But bottom line, we're in the hands of the Savior, and we're in good hands.
Mm-hmm. It says, the king was overjoyed, gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. And when Daniel was lifted from the den, no wound was found on him, because he had trusted in his God. At the king's command, the men who had falsely accused Daniel were brought in and thrown into the lion's den. So the tables were turned. Again, a direct thematic connection to Esther when Haman, who was once the one ready to put all the Jewish people on the gallows, finds himself on the gallows.
And his family.
Yeah, 100%.
And this is the same thing, exact same thing.
And along with their wives and children, and before they reached the floor of the den, the lions overpowered them and crushed all their bones.
So now, in verse 25, King Darius is going to send out an email, Chris. He's sending out an email. Why don't you read, what was the email? He's sending this is an email to all his people in the kingdom.
That's right. He writes this in his email. May you prosper greatly. I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom, people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His dominion will never end. He rescues and saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. So Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian.
Chris, you get this. You're there in Persia. You get this email. You know what you're going to ask? First question, you ask your buddy, you see them, or another family. Hey, did you get the email from Darius? What happened?
Yeah.
What happened? I believe that there were Gentiles communicating of the miracle of the lion's den and the testimony of the God of Abraham, or in this case, the God of Daniel. They wouldn't know who Abraham was, but the God of Daniel and what the God of Daniel did. That email was a glory email. It was a glorious message that brought honor to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
And, this all stems back to Genesis 12:3. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. And then also the promise that God made to Abraham, in you, all the families of the earth will be blessed. A lot of times I think when you're studying the Old Testament, you can think the Jewish people are God's chosen people, and that can sound like it's some inclusive club. It was never intended to be an inclusive club. It was designed to be exclusive, where it invites people into the worship of the God of the nations. The Jewish people were to be a kingdom of priests to the world, and that's what Daniel is showing us. Daniel is giving us hints that even right now, as you're reading through the text, prophecy tells us there's a day coming when the Messiah will come, the Jewish Messiah will come, and he will establish his throne, and it will be a kingdom that will never be destroyed.
Preach it, brother.
Yeah, that's something that's coming. But even now, even as the Gentiles are controlling the nations, it's the picture that there is a sovereignty of God that is ruling over everything at all times. And even in those moments, pagan kings can drop their pagan ways for a moment and look up and see God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is in control of everything.
It's an amazing story. Many Christian kids know the story. We hope we gave you just a little different perspective than maybe the Sunday school had.
100%. Hey, Steve, we've got some interesting news for our listeners as we transition. Just yesterday we were talking about the fact that Roxanne, Laura, and Kathy, several Friends of Israel representatives, several Friends of Israel volunteers, Bridges graduates, and 300,000 other people were down in the Washington National Mall, Washington, D.C., to support Israel and the Jewish people. But about 300 Jewish people headed to D.C. Israel rally. They were left stranded by bus drivers staging ultimately a deliberate attempt to snub them.
This morning at our chapel service, we had one of our fellows, Tim Munger, in Michigan, and he was reporting there were 900 in Michigan alone where the bus drivers refused, Chris, to drive those buses so that those folks could get to the rally. And here it's 300. I'm not sure if that's part of the same group or not. But Chris, if anything concerns me, it's one thing to have counter rallies. You have the Jewish rally and then the Palestinian rally. And when those two are real close together, the tension is high. But you almost expect that kind of thing. And there's a certain makeup of a person and their personality as to whether they're going to be part of a rally and how much they want to get involved. But this is a job. We're talking about buses, dozens of buses that need bus drivers. And your job, you work for a company. And the company tells wherever you're supposed to drive your bus, whoever you pick up, you're supposed to do it. Chris, these folks decided, these bus drivers said, you know what? We're not going to do it. We are not going to drive these Jewish supporters to Washington, D.C. That is, from me personally, that's deeply concerning. That tells you how deep anti-Semitism is going and what people are willing to do, even if it threatens their livelihood. I admire their zeal. I admire that. Oh, they must be really committed to their cause, and their cause is to hate Jews. That's not good.
It says that the drivers had organized a mass sick-out day to prevent Jewish ralliers from attending the much-anticipated march, leaving just a handful available to meet their obligations. We have the quote says from the Post says, "We have learned from the bus company that this was caused by a deliberate and malicious walk-off of drivers. The bus company, which the Federation repeatedly refused to name, which is very nice as well, very nice. If you think about it, there's an opportunity to throw the bus company under the bus, no pun intended. But they didn't. The Jewish Federation of Detroit, that a significant number of drivers called out sick when they learned that they would be taking hundreds of Jewish Americans to the pro-Israel rally. The organization's David Kurzman told reporters at the press conference on Tuesday. So just sad.
Very sad, very concerning. Chris, this isn't going away. I'm an American. I'm a Jewish American. I'm a Jewish American Christian. I love America.
Oh, you're like you've got a big target, huh?
Well, it's just sad to me that even if you don't agree with what they're rallying about, they're doing. This was a rally of Americans, Jews and Gentiles, who say, yeah, we support Israel. Okay, other people support the Palestinians, but this is their job. They're supposed to drive the bus and take them there. But notice, at least according to the Post, this was malicious.
No, it was planned,
deep-seated, and very concerning to me.
Steve, another one comes out of Fox News that you found for us. Arabic copy of Hitler's Mein Kampf found in children's room used by Hamas. Israeli officials said on Sunday that members of their military found an Arabic copy of Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf in a children's room, which was used by a base by Hamas terrorists in northern Gaza over the weekend. You know, Steve, when you hear this, the reality is that what you want in life when you see this war going on is that we're going to wake up when this is all said and done, and there's going to be peace. The problem is that you need to raise your kids to develop that peace, that it becomes a reality. And the sad thing is that Israeli kids are raised with peace in mind. They're raised to understand how their country came about, the complexities of living in Israel. They understand what it means to have Israeli Arab friends, what it means for the Palestinians living in the West Bank and Gaza. They understand all these things. They learn them. And they're taught not to hate. But when you go into Gaza and you see these children are raised to hate, it's embedded in their curriculum. That's how we met our friend Bassem Eid. He was in Washington, D.C. many years ago. I met him in Washington. He was speaking at a congressional panel on why America should defund the UNRWA, because the curriculum that they have for Palestinian kids is teaching them to hate Israel and the Jewish people. And so that's being taught and embedded in their way of life as they grow up. And that's seen all throughout the Muslim world. So again, here's just another example of that.
Chris, it says here, the terrorist highlighted portions of the book. This was a terrorist who had this copy of Mein Kampf, and it had his own notes in the book. And listen to what he wrote. It starts with words, he said. It ends with Jewish blood in the streets. It starts with words. It ends with blood in the streets. With Jewish blood. Okay. It starts with words. It ends with Jewish blood in the streets. Chris,
and that's what happens.
Blood curdling to think about that. This copy of Mein Kampf. And by the way, it's a bestseller in the Arab world. Mein Kampf is a bestseller.
And I'll say this too, that happened. October 7th, it went from words to actions.
100%.
This is something that I think we've been trying to tout here on the Jew and Gentile podcast for a while now, is that I think a lot of people are focused on October 7th, but they've been acting in a terrorist way for 15 years, launching rockets, sending in terrorists into Israel, all of these things that they've been doing over the years. And now they did it on October 7th, and everybody's surprised when they've been telling us this is who they are, the Hamas, from the very beginning. It's in their charter.
No question. And Chris, I try to find humor even in just horrendous things. And I have to admit that Justin Trudeau makes me laugh. even when the news
Canadian
is
Prime
bad,
Minister.
It makes it so. Here's Brit Bart, our news source for this article. Justin Trudeau rails against Islamophobia so he's going to rail against Islamophobia. This is in direct reaction to an attack on Montreal Jewish schools. Wait, they're Jewish schools. Okay, Jewish people have been attacked. Hey, I just want to warn you about being against Muslims.
Yeah. Why do you think leaders do this? Why?
Political. He wants to cover the people that support him. He happens to be a progressive. But
when did the progressive and Muslim ideals overlap with one another? They couldn't be more different from each other.
You are 100%. It is an enigma. It is amazing.
I'll be honest with you. There are more progressive Jewish people than there ever are.
I was just going to give the example of a Jewish rabbi in L.A. I don't have the news item in front of me, but I read the article, and the article this was a guy, he said, I am so disappointed. I've stood side by side with Black Lives Matter. I have walked in the streets of L.A. side by side with LGBTQ supporters, and I've stood with them, and I was happy to do so. Where are they? Mm-hmm. Where are they now when my people are being oppressed, when my people are being targeted, when my people have been butchered? I look to my right, I look to my left. There's nobody here. I'm alone. Trudeau's giving you an example why. Oh, Jewish people attacked here? Let's make sure we protect the Muslims. Forget that he had no mention of the Jewish. Oh yeah, this is kind of bad. But let's not be Islamophobic. I have Islamophobia. If you're Jewish, you better have Islamophobia. And you have to show me if I see a keffiyeh, if I see somebody with a keffiyeh and I don't know who they are, should I be confident? That doesn't mean I'm going to be prejudiced against them. But in thinking about my own health, what is it possible there's trouble? If I see a flag, a Hamas flag, anywhere in New York City, and you're a Jewish person with the payas hanging down on the side, are you gonna walk right next to that person, or are you gonna cross the street? That's self-preservation. It's very interesting.
Do you think, though, that the progressive movement takes advantage of the Jewish, or I don't even, progressive might not even, maybe that's leaning too far. But do you think that they take advantage? Is that the reason that they feel comfortable, as anti-Semitism skyrockets 1,000%? They go, now let's have an education on Islamophobia. And you're going, what? What are you talking about?
They're trying to make sure everything is fair. And that's the worst thing.
But if there was a rise in Islamophobia, would they start touting anti-Semitism? We have to be careful about anti-Semitism.
No,
that's my question.
No, not even close. The Jewish people get no attention until they start defending themselves. That's when they get the attention. I don't want to get too far into it.
You're already there.
It's the same thing with guns. Why Jewish people were never for guns. If anything, my own father, after he got out of the army, he could have kept his arms. I don't want to see a gun. He couldn't stand it. But in Nazi Germany, that's the first thing they took away. And so in the United States, when this thing happened, the guns in Jewish neighborhoods are flying off the shelves. Why? because somehow, finally, wait a minute. I'm realizing if there were more guns in that kibbutz, because the people who did have them emptied everything they had and were able to hold off at least for a little while in hopes of help coming. If you've got bupkis will happen, and that's what's happening now. It's a shame, but it's the way it is.
Well, I wish that's the thing with this is you want a quick answer and you don't get it at all, and so you rack your brain trying to figure these things out, but sei gesund, Steve, as you would say.
Sei gesund, live and be well.
All right, Steve, Yiddish word of the day.
Chris, we had 3 words, English words, we asked the gals. They were telling us about hopeful, impressive, youthful, energetic. Well, we took one of the words, impressive, and actually made a sentence out of it in Yiddish. You are impressive. We would say that crowd yesterday was impressive.
That was
wouldn't we?
They were expecting 100,000. They got 300.
In Yiddish, we'd say sind impressive.
What does that mean?
It means you are impressive.
Well, thank you very much.
Not you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
They're impressive.
They are impressive. You had another one, too, didn't you?
I did, yes. Hopeful is Hoffnung. Hofenung. I can't even pronounce it. I never heard it growing up, but I looked it up. Hopeful is Hoffnung.
Okay, you're doing a great job. You're a Yiddish specialist.
I bet you one of the 7 listeners is going to write and said, you guys could not have been more wrong.
Well,
but that's what I looked up.
Somebody did write us in once and said, you guys should learn to say Yiddish properly. So, sei gesund. All right.
Sei gesund. Live and be well.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for listening to the Jew and Gentile podcast. Hey, be sure to check out all that we're doing by going to foiequip.org. And there you can
got a class coming up.
I got a class. We're going to be doing Thanksgiving from the book of Leviticus. Please go check it out. foiequip.org. You can not only sign up for that class, but you can also sign up for the class that I'm doing on Bethlehem. You know, Steve, everybody goes Bethlehem.
We got a lot of Chris Katulka coming on.
Only 2 classes, so it's all good. Hey, listen, go to FOI Equip and sign up, and we will see you next week.